All right, folks, we got a few people that are still coming in through the waiting room. Looks like we got really good participation today, pushing 50 agents. So thank you all for being here. I guess last week not having it, we were you were all so hungry to get back into ADT that we jumped the participation numbers. So that's great.
No, it's called managing the chaos.
Yes, we are managing chaos right now. So
That's our specialty.
I can't believe we're 2 short weeks out, guys, from really the beginning of the Medicare annual enrollment period. A couple of quick updates I just wanted to provide for you. One is we did get a notice this morning from Jeff Beckley, our carrier relations guy, that the FFM is not yet launched, and we still are kind of in a limbo waiting on it. There is a CMS webinar scheduled. I think that's tomorrow or Thursday, and I think Rachel had sent that out to many of you. It'd be worth jumping on it if you're a brand new agent. I presume since they're actually talking about the FFM certification now, hopefully they'll be opening the training very, very soon, and we'll have an opportunity to knock that out for 2026 enrollments. I know a few of you brand new agents are just like waiting on pins and needles for that. So I'm sorry I can't do much to push the federal government any faster on this, but hopefully that will be launching here very soon. So I did want to let you know that. Also wanted to remind you, if you have not yet RSVP'd to Megan Smith for our territory event uh, on the 26th, I believe it is. Yes, the 26th, so a week and a half out. Please RSVP on that. We need final RSVPs by the end of the day today. Part of it is we need to be able to plan for
Oh,
seating
the territory.
and food. So um, you're okay. I'm going to mute you though, Sandra. So if you guys have an RSVP, please RSVP. That's always a great event because it is an opportunity for us to get together, spend some time before the craziness as a team. We'll have a lot of great content and a lot of great speakers that we'll be bringing in for it. Dan Garrison's going to be joining us virtually this time, just kind of with some pre-AEP, OEP thoughts. So I hope you're all able to attend. And then Megan has actually set up an awesome lunch event afterwards. We're going to actually have pasta bars and things, so we'll be able to get up and move around. We'll have a bar there, so hopefully you guys can stick around and just spend a little bit of time with your teammates before we hit the craziness of the AEP OEP season. So so I'm going to go ahead and jump into things for today. Cav and I are going to tag team things a little bit. I wanted to give you some updates on VanillaSoft, and I'm hoping to bring in VanillaSoft next Tuesday for our ADT training to address any additional questions or issues that you might have. So I would ask you to continue to compile questions, concerns, issues. We want to get those addressed for you. I will say we've made a ton of progress with VanillaSoft. Congratulations to all of you. Right now, we are the #1 territory in the country as far as adoption and usage of VanillaSoft. So we've got close to 70% of our agents that have actually logged in and done something inside of it. I would tell you, if you have not yet done that, you need to. This is the system and the platform that is going to integrate with everything moving forward. And if you're going to, effectively manage your clients, your prospects, your book of business, you really got to get familiar with the platform and the system. There will be additional training going on, so you guys, certainly watch for that and tune in on that. I will say I have had a few questions from people referencing that the VanillaSoft launch seems to have impacted other things. Now, I don't necessarily know if that's true or not, but some agents were having some issues with Connecture or in Quote Connect or in Retire Flow, which is a survey that we use in the Medicare space in conjunction with Connecture. It is important to understand that VanillaSoft is, a standalone CRM, and while it does integrate with some of our other systems, some of those other issues may be unrelated to VanillaSoft. So I would ask you, as you run into questions, concerns, issues about any of the technology, please capture screenshots. Please send them to myself. We are still managing and compiling a list of escalations that need resolved. I want to take a moment though and show you guys what we have done at a corporate level and kind of where we're at with VanillaSoft and the things we've accomplished, because there is a lot that's gotten done. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. This is actually um, let's get up here and I'm going to move all your heads. So this is an overview of what issues have been completed and addressed and which issues are still in process. And so I just want to comment on a handful of these and kind of go through them. I'm actually going to start in the lower right-hand corner because you can see the two columns to the right are the ones where stuff is completed. So the local presence or smart caller ID toggle. This is the ability to toggle on and off your local presence. Where I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but if you're calling in a different state or a different area, you can actually use the smart caller ID, and it will basically do an outbound call using a local number. So there's more of a chance of that prospect picking that call up. So it's kind of a masking technique that we can use in other geographies. So you do have the ability now to toggle that on and off, depending on who you're calling and which number you actually want to show up. They did update the contact merge functionality so that we can merge contacts. If you see duplicates in your system, I would encourage you to go through the process of merging them. There's a great video out there for that on the Resource Center under the Learning Center under Brainier. And so I'd encourage you. One of the things about having a good CRM and a clean CRM is that you're cleaning it as you work it, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why our CRM inside of my agency worked so well for so long is because we were constantly cleaning the data and updating things as we saw. And this is one thing that you can do as you run into duplicate contacts in there. Um,
Silas,
yes,
can you make it a wee bit bigger?
I don't think I can and keep it all on the same screen, Sandra.
Okay, okay.
Like if I start doing that, then we're not in the area. I guess I can move this a little bit. Is that a little better?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Cool. So I'm over here on this side. It's kind of where I'm going through. We also now have the ability to upload contacts into VanillaSoft, and there's a template where you can put information into it and then upload it. So if you have like outside lists or a Chamber of Commerce list or something that you pulled down that you want to upload into the system, we have the ability to do that. There is an agent activity dashboard that's now rocking. It gives you insights and your leadership team insights into activity leads and sales performance. You can actually see a hierarchy if you're a sales leader as well. So we're going to begin using that data to just inform us, I think, on what agents are engaged, what agents are actually utilizing the system. Application syncs. So you have the ability to manually add applications into VanillaSoft now. So if you complete an application inside of Health Sherpa or inside of ConnectSure, it will automatically be synced back into the VanillaSoft CRM. But if you do an application outside of the health markets enrollment platforms, so like if you go directly to a carrier and enroll somebody just on the carrier website, you probably want to manually add that application into VanillaSoft on that particular contact. So we have the capability of that. If you're a sponsor agent and you have assistants working for you, we have now made all agent assistants admins of their sponsor agent projects. So this gives them flexibility. This gives your assistants flexibility to be able to work the queue and the leads that are being served up inside of your system, and also make adjustments and changes inside of the system. So that's big. This is a big one down here at the bottom. This routing details, why leads pop up to be worked. So there's a checklist section that now displays priority and priority description. And that's taking it from the filters on each contact. So that's on the main screen on the right-hand side. I think it's second column over. You'll be able to see now, why is this lead being served up to me as a lead that needs to be worked in my queue? What's the priority level of it? What's the kind of reason behind it? So I think that's a really, really nice upgrade. We added the county to VanillaSoft because we do need that in some of our tools for quoting. This is just a speed issue, so they're updating updates to be happen in one day instead of two, so that's good. We talked about that. A date added field for new leads. So now there's a sortable, filterable field under my contacts, in addition to the filters being done where you can actually see, and so you can rank order your leads in the order that they came in if you want to work back through them or make sure you didn't miss anything. There's the ability to mass enroll into email campaigns. So this is where you can bulk add contacts to email campaigns in mass, which is great. They did update the live transfer numbers. It's now mapping to the mobile phone number. It was going to the home phone number in the system. And so we've changed that now where any live transfer coming in goes to the mobile phone so we can SMS text them and do the appropriate outreach to them. So that's been updated. And then last but not least, this is probably the biggest thing that's happened in the last couple of days. There was a massive migration of additional data that came in. So we went back 180 days worth of leads, and added them in. We are group one. We were the first group to roll it out. So so we went back 180 days. And then this last weekend, we had a significant upgrade where tier three and tier four agents, we migrated 5 years worth of data over into their system. So I'll tell you, my database went from I think about 2,600 to over 14,000 over the weekend, and there's still stuff populating in that I can see coming in. So that migration is continuing to happen. There are a few things that we have not yet finalized and fixed. The biggest one being this do not contact or do not call. So anytime that someone is on a DNC list, VanillaSoft automatically flags that person and makes it a little bit more difficult for us to communicate with them, either by calling them, texting them, emailing them, using templates to do outreach to them. Those things are kind of suppressed at this point. Part of it was we were really trying to err on the side of making sure that people were not violating the DNC, but we are going through and updating a fix so that if somebody's an existing client, if they've requested information, in the last 90 days, there are some key things where we want to lift those DNC rules off of that particular contact so that we can openly engage a little bit more freely with those particular contacts. I will tell you this DNC issue is impacting some of our ability to run filters. So I know for me, like if I go in and I run an interactive or an elective routing filter for like clients who are turning 65 in the next 9 months, which is one of the pre-canned ones, very few records come back. And I'm really of the opinion, and I think I confirmed it this morning on the TVP call, that the reason it's not pulling those records into that particular filter is because of this DNC issue. So we're very hopeful that this is going to be resolved very, very quickly. We're going to be able to do SMS or text drip campaigns that start automatically when a new lead hits the system. So that's in progress and coming soon. Allowing agents to create email templates is coming soon. There's some enhancements to the appointment schedulers. So you can automatically attach a unique Google or Zoom link to it, which is coming and in process. And there's some B-lead functionality, which we don't do a lot with B-lead, so I'm not too concerned about that. But I know this is a lot, but I wanted to just give you guys a quick overview of what has happened and what is being worked on. I think that there's still more to do and a lot more work to be done on this, but we have made incredible progress in a short 4 weeks, and it's really only been 4 weeks. So, Sandra, you're muted.
My husband would like to know I'm muted, but that's another story. So do you want to field questions about actual functionality, for example, like how to add family members and making sure it goes in properly, that type of thing? Or do you want to wait on those types of questions?
I don't think we have the time or bandwidth today to answer like one-off questions like that. I would encourage you, work with your leadership, your sales leaders. If you have a question, you want to send it to me, I'm happy to try to answer it for you. I think some of those questions, though, if those are the questions that are being asked, are addressed in the videos that are out there on the Resource Center. So make sure you've referenced the videos. I don't mean to I guess what I would say is we don't have the time to spoon feed you everything that's in those videos. So I would encourage everybody, go watch the videos first. And then if you have additional questions or need additional clarity or unable to do something, that's probably the time for an escalation. So hope that makes sense.
Okay.
A couple of other just quick updates. There are two other big things that are going to be rolling out here in the next 2 weeks. One is the Connecture. It's called Active Analytics. For those of you who are in Austin for our celebration event, you may remember or sat in on our presentation on this. This won't launch till right around 10/1. But basically what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to go into Connecture and we're going to be able to see all the clients that we have done an enrollment with through Connecture. And they're going to come up and it's going to give us some analytical data that will help us focus on clients who need our help the most. So for example, if there's clients on a plan that is exiting and no longer going to be available and we have to get them enrolled in something else, those will come up and you'll be able to see those kind of filtered out. If you have a client who is on a medication and the current plan that they're on is no longer going to have that medication on their formulary list, that'll populate out and it'll give you a list of those clients who are in that type of a situation. If you have if Connecture identifies that your client has a doctor on their PCP or specialist list, and that doctor is no longer going to be in network with the insurance company that they're currently enrolled with, that'll pop up. So there's some cool things like that are coming that won't be available until the very 1st of October. And that's all Connecture doing that. But that'll be kind of nice to look at that. And then a little bit later this week, we're planning to launch the new Yext platform. And Yext is I mean, it's over $1 million investment that we're making to help agents better manage their online presence. I can't say I'm well versed on this yet, but there are going to be some trainings that are going to be going on over the next week or two. I do think there's one scheduled for Friday, although I'm trying to figure out exactly what time it is. We have a Indiana sales team meeting on Friday morning, so I think some of us might miss that if it's in the morning. But I'll get you more information on Yext as well, so that deployment is scheduled to happen. So a lot of things continuing to spin and change. I will say personally, I feel way better where we're at with VanillaSoft right now than I did a week or 10 days ago. I think just getting a lot of this data for our veteran agents was a big win. So I'd encourage you start playing with the data, and if you had feedback or additional questions, feel free to reach out. I'm going to check this chat box really quickly and just see if there's anything that I needed to address here. Um, I don't see. So you want to migrate your cell phone transfer to the VS phone. Um, So you can port your cell phone over. I don't know if I would do that, Lauren, personally. I think that once you port over your phone number, you lose your cell phone. Like you don't lose the number because it becomes your VanillaSoft number. But I think if I was in your shoes operating as a single agent without staff, if it was me, I would hang on to my cell phone number and then I would use my VanillaSoft number as my new office number. And I would put that on my email.
Silas, she has two cell phones. She wants to just move one over and keep the other one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a simple process to port it over then. Thanks, Gav.
Okay.
I think there's a video out there on that. They did a training on it last
Oh,
week.
there is? I
Video.
didn't even see that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's all porting your phone number over.
Okay.
Thanks for interpreting, Gav. So, Ryan, I would say VanillaSoft, I would say just send it to me at this point, and I'll do my best to get it to the right people. So, Stefan, I see yours about family members. I've had that same issue a few times, and some other agents have reported it. So I have escalated that. If there's any way for you to give me an example of what you're experiencing, like if you could take a screenshot of your household in VanillaSoft and tell me what you did, and then take a screenshot of what it looks like when you port over to Quote Connect, and give me an explanation there a little bit, that would be super helpful. And I see all of the commentary after that too. So Kevin asked, he's purchasing a mailing list from an outside vendor. Yes, there is. And that was one of the things that I just addressed as far as doing an upload. There's a template to do that. And I believe there's a video out there on how to do that as well, Kevin. Before I jump off, are there any other simple questions that we can answer or any other things that you'd like to ask about VanillaSoft right now? I do feel, fortunately, I felt like I was the bottleneck for a lot of the escalations there for a while, and they have slowed down, which is a good sign that we're getting a lot of things resolved. And I know they are working very quickly on things. So yeah, please keep me updated. I'll take Stefan, if you can send that to me this morning, I'd love to get that over to Amy Swanson and Sally Newton and push on that a little bit. I still think there's a question too around the time the time change that happens in November. Ryan Pius and Kerry Hunter had escalated that, and I'm still pushing on that a little bit, trying to figure out how that's all going to work, and what the logic is behind that. So a few things that are still outstanding, but we've gotten a lot of things resolved too.
Silas, on that,
Yes, go
if you
ahead.
don't mind me asking a quick question on that. So, um, I guess maybe a quick resolve temporarily is if you go from VanillaSoft and rather than just adding the contacts on VanillaSoft, you go to Quote Connect first, put all the information on Quote Connect, add all the dependents on Quote Connect, and then it should transfer over to VanillaSoft, correct?
Yes, as long as you
Okay.
that button at the bottom that says add to CRM, it should pull those back in. So yeah, that would be a nice workaround or an easy
Yeah.
work. If you need to add somebody in your, in the quoting process, add them into Quote Connect and then let it sync back to VanillaSoft. I think where the issue is, at least that I've seen, is when you're adding people to a record, to a contact inside of VanillaSoft, and then you're porting out from VanillaSoft into Quote Connect to quote them. That's where it seems to kind of jumble up the household a little bit at times. And it doesn't happen every time for me, but it has. I've seen it happen myself, and I've escalated it too. So I'll push and ask about that. I was hoping that that would be resolved by now, but if you've seen it recently, or if you can give me a picture, like some sort of a screenshot on it, that'd be great. Okay, so I'm going to pivot over and we're going to talk a little bit about short-term insurance because short-term insurance is back, which is, I think, a big deal for many of our clients, especially the ones that are going to be dealing with significant rate increases this next year. So a couple of thoughts I just wanted to share with you, and then I'm going to let Cav talk a little bit about Allstate. So we are expecting, and I've said this many times, I just don't want people to lose sight of this. We are expecting a lot of volatility this fall. One thing that you're all going to deal with is if you have existing clients who are ACA members, like they're on an ACA plan and they're getting a government subsidy, around the 1st of October, they're going to get a letter mailed to them from their insurance company with an estimate of what next year's premium is going to be. I will tell you, 99% of those are going to be wrong information. The federal government mandates that the insurance companies have to send out this letter, but they're sending it out in early October before any of the new subsidies for 2026 have been calibrated or calculated. And so what we've seen in the last 10 years is the insurance company sends out the new raw premium with the 2025 subsidy applied to it. So they use the new premium for 2026 and the only data they have, which is the 2025 subsidy. So all of that information is clients, and it creates a lot of volatility and a lot of confusion. I want to make sure you new agents know, just tell them it's not accurate. I mean, but it is going to create some frenzy, around the 1st of the month. And honestly, it could be better, it could be worse than what they're getting. We just don't know quite yet. Right now, there is some legislation making its way, through the process where 11 Republicans have actually jumped on board and said we need to continue the enhanced subsidies for 2026 and maybe beyond. I think it's being pushed by midterm elections, honestly, and I think obviously nobody wants the free ice cream's already been given away, so anybody who tries to take repo the free ice cream is the bad guy, and that's kind of where we're at with this right now. But I do think we're getting more and more traction with potentially saving some of these enhanced subsidies and not having our clients not have to deal with the combination of pretty significant rate increases and reductions in subsidies in the same year. So I'm hopeful on that. But I do think we are going to have clients who hit that point where they just simply can't afford an ACA plan any longer. And so I think moving into 2026, we are going to have all the arrows in our quiver, and we're going to have to become really adept at guiding these clients on what options are available to them as far as creative alternatives to an ACA plan. Now, I will tell you, and I'm going to tell my clients this up front, if you're sick, if you have massive pre-existing conditions, things like that, you don't have any option but to be on the ACA if you want those pre-existing conditions and those medications covered. That is what it is. The only place somebody's going to go and get coverage for a pre-existing condition is an ACA compliant plan, whether it's on exchange or off exchange with the carriers. So we may see situations this next year where we have to take that 1 or 2 sick family members and put them onto an ACA plan, and then we'll look at creative alternatives for the other members, of the family. And so some families might get split up. That's not ideal because now you're getting into a situation where there's the potential of much higher out of pocket across the family unit because of, being on different plans, different deductibles and different out of pocket limits and different risk. But from an affordability perspective, it may be where we need to go. We have done a lot of training over the last couple of weeks and month to month and a half, specifically on the Med Mutual Protect, their specified disease and accident policy, which is a bit of a catastrophic policy, along with the Health Protector Guard from GRIC. And I would just encourage you guys, if you're not yet appointed to sell the Med Mutual Protect product, or if you don't know anything about it, or if you're not familiar with the HPG products, those are products that you really need to learn and understand. I had sent out some training. We'll get it onto the Jessup Territory YouTube channel as well. A couple weeks ago, Cav and I did a good training on how you can use those products together. I will say the combination of the Med Mutual Protect and a Health Protector Guard together is probably going to be one of the lowest priced creative alternatives available to our consumers. And Cav can kind of speak to that in just a moment. I will say, though, those products are not perfect. Number one, they don't cover pre-existing conditions. Number two, you do have to qualify to get into them. And then number three, there are other gaps and holes where they could have a significant out of pocket. It's building a series of safety nets, but not getting them to a point where they have a true maximum out of pocket in a bad year. So that's going to be the least expensive option. And I think we've got to have that. You guys got to become really familiar with how to quote that, how to enroll in it, and how to explain it appropriately. So go back to the trainings on that. In the last week, we have now gotten confirmation that short-term and tri-term products are back in many states. Now, I say many states. I'm sorry to those of you that live in Michigan and do a bunch of work in Michigan, because you did get a little bit of a bump, but the state of Michigan prevents short-term plans from being sold for more than 6 months at a time. It's better than 4 months, but it's not as good as some of the other states where we can buy a 12-month or even up to a 36-month type of policy. And so I wanted to just kind of address this. Short term is back for many of us. Those of you in Indiana, we now have the option of selling a short-term product from 1 to 12 months, so up to 12 months at a time. And we also have a 36-month or a tri-term option. Allstate has already rolled out all of their products. So Allstate is ready to rock and roll. This week, we expect United Healthcare or United Health One to roll out their short-term and tri-term products again. And so those will be available for quoting and enrollment, very, very soon here. A few things that, we haven't sold short-term in a while because the Biden administration actually made it illegal to sell it for more than 4 months at a time. And it just wasn't a viable option to bridge people through an extended period of time. I think anytime you try to, and I speak to those of you in Michigan right now, if you're trying to bridge somebody through by stacking 2 6-month policies on top of each other to get them through a 12-month time frame, that might be a legitimate strategy, but somebody needs to fully understand what their risk is there, right? And the risk is if they get sick in the first 6 months, when that 6-month plan ends, they're screwed because they may be in the middle of the year. The loss of short-term insurance is not a qualifying event to get into an ACA product. And because they're now sick, they can't qualify to buy a new short-term plan to get through the next 6 months. So if I was in Michigan and I was selling short-term products that I was trying to bridge through more than 6 months to a guaranteed issue type of situation, like the end of the year, I would absolutely be selling that alongside Health Protector Guard and the Med Mutual Protect product, one or both of them. So you can kind of, especially if you're doing that long bridge. Now, for those of us in Indiana, we've got the ability to bridge a full 12 months or up to 36 months right now with these new products that have rolled back out. And since we haven't done a lot of training on short-term and tri-term products, I figured today was the day that we needed to spend a little bit of time on it so you guys can get, familiar with these products. And I will say for our healthy and wealthy clients or people that aren't qualifying for significant government subsidies, they are wonderful products. The things you need to understand about all short-term and tri-term products, though, is number one, you have to qualify to get into them medically. So there's medical underwriting. So somebody who just had a heart attack or somebody, and there's a number of things that could be knockout questions. And it's a lot of things that could knock them out of getting short-term or tri-term insurance. So that's one thing to understand. The second thing to understand is that most of these plans will not cover pre-existing conditions. Now, different companies use different definitions for pre-existing conditions, but I think kind of the large global definition of that is anything that you've been treated for in the last 12 months. So if you've talked to a doctor, if you've taken a medication, if a medication was prescribed and you didn't take it, if any sort of medical care was received or talked about, it's probably a pre-existing condition and probably will not be covered on the new plan moving forward. That's kind of the generic. Now, there's variations and variety to that a little bit, but generically speaking, that's kind of how it works. The other thing that I think it's important to understand about short-term plans is that many of them, they're really designed to be kind of catastrophic. Many of them are not going to cover all the little things like preventative services. Some of them have discount cards for medications. Short-term plans are not, or tri-term plans are not HSA approved plans. So you cannot leverage contributions to a health savings account into them. So there are some downsides to short-term and tri-term plans. But again, for that healthy client who doesn't have a lot of pre-existing conditions and they're not getting a bunch of government subsidy, they could be a really viable option to bridge your clients through. One last thing I'll say before I turn it over to Cav is that for those of us who are looking at the tri-term options, so the 3-year policies, one thing that's nice about Allstate in particular is that they have a 3-year rate lock. So whatever their rate is in year 1, it's going to stay the same rate all 3 years if they keep that same policy. I don't know exactly how United Healthcare, United Health One Golden Rule is going to work, but in the past, you could buy a 3-year policy, but every year that price ticked up, and we saw some pretty significant rate increases in year 2 and year 3 on those. Now, they don't have to requalify based on their health each year, but they do experience a rate increase each year. As we kind of look back in the past, I always felt that the Golden Rule products were maybe a little bit more substantial in what they covered and a few less gaps and holes. The Allstate maybe had a few more holes that things could shoot through, but they were also less expensive. So those are going to be really our 2 primary carriers, unless we bring somebody else in. But at this point, it's really Golden Rule, United Health One, and Allstate are going to be the 2 carriers that you'll be able to quote. And I'm hopeful that these will, not only be available on the carrier websites, but in Quote Connect at some point in the near future too. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Cav. Cav, I don't know where you want to go with this, but I know we were going to spend some time on tri-terms and short terms. So the floor is yours, my friend.
All right. So, again, we're going to talk about Allstate. I watched a training on YouTube, and they've drastically improved their short-term option. And so this is the Indiana version with Cigna. Now, Allstate has 2 networks you can choose. You can choose Cigna or you can choose Aetna. And I actually heard on the webinar why they have 2. And there's 2 different brochures. This is actually the Cigna brochure. Okay, so yeah, access to Cigna. But the reason is they recommend if you're selling to someone on the East Coast, they recommend the Aetna network because the major hospitals on the East Coast are in the Aetna network. So you're talking like in Boston and Johns Hopkins and all that kind of stuff. But basically, from kind of Midwest West, Cigna is actually the better network to hit all the hospitals that are important to us. So both networks are phenomenal. They're huge, but actually Cigna is actually bigger than Aetna. So the reason they have the Aetna is actually for the East Coast, but most of the state does, or most of the country does Cigna. So that kind of helps out. Okay. So I didn't know that. But the one thing you need to understand about the short-term plan is in order to get a short-term plan, all these companies, they usually tie this to an association where you have to pay an additional premium. And the reason why is when they make changes to these plans, for some reason, if it's tied to an association, they can broadcast it to multiple states at once instead of doing each state individually. So when people say, why do I got to join this association benefit? It's because that's how they mass market this to many states at one time, and you have to do it, okay? So it's called the Life Association benefit. I think it's $15, but it's figured right into the premium. Now, again, the features of the short term is you have the flexible coverage periods where, again, you can do as 30 days up to 3 years. You can have next day coverage. So again, you can apply today and it can start tomorrow. For those of you who have people who lose coverage like mid-month, you can jump them into this. Doctor visits are covered on all plans. It's just certain plans are going to go to deductible and coinsurance. Other plans, there's a copay. all the plans have an urgent care where it's just a $50, they call them excess fee, but there's no deductible. So they can go to urgent care, pay $50, which is huge because on a lot of short-term plans, everything's going towards the deductible. And then they have RX benefits and discounts. Now, I haven't seen how to do it, but they have a company or vendor they're working with that you can supposedly add to this. That, see, if you're taking, let's just say, blood pressure medication, it's pre-existing. So even on their discount card, it's not covered the first year. But they have this new company, I forget what the name of it is, but it's a zero copay up to $50 for over 800 generic drugs, and it does cover pre-existing. And you're supposedly able to add it for like $10. So I haven't seen how to do that yet, but we'll look into that. So that's kind of a neat feature where if I have someone that's on blood pressure, cholesterol, like if I can go to the doctor, if I can go to the pharmacy and have a zero copay, because what's the biggest complaint about high deductible plans? It doesn't cover anything. Well, all of a sudden, if I'm going and getting my drugs taken care of, people feel like they have coverage. Now, the other thing they talked about is, again, it's a PPO, but you have access to the Cigna network, which has over 1 million primary care doctors and 6,300 hospitals. And again, I popped in my ear, all the hospitals around here are in network with Cigna. But what they told me is that, you know, if you go in for a doctor, the average doctor visit after the discount is about $70. So that's kind of good to know that if I have a high deductible plan and I go in, a doctor visit's going to cost me $70. Okay. So here's the different plans. There's 2 plan options. Now, one is the enhanced plan, which is what they sell by far, and they have a copay enhanced plan. But it was interesting. The guy from Allstate actually said the copay, they're not worth it because you only get a couple copays. Okay, so if you're up to 6 months, you get 1 copay, 3 total. Over 6 months, 2, and a family total of 4. So again, the copays aren't really worth it. What the big benefit for this copay enhanced plan is the 5 million maximum. Because one of the things I didn't understand is if you take a 3-year plan, the $1 million covers all 3 years. It's not $1 million per year. Okay. So if people want, if that kind of scares them a little bit, I don't really think it's a big deal because if someone gets something that's really bad, I'm going to pop them in an ACA next year anyway. I'm not going to keep them on this plan. But the big selling benefits of the copay enhanced is the 5 million, but these plans are a lot more expensive than the enhanced PPO, which is their more traditional catastrophic. And the other thing he talked about is don't sell the 80/20 plans. It's too confusing because you've got to take your deductible plus the 5,000 and you've got to add them together. He said the plans that are 90% of their sales are the 100% plans where it's you pick your deductible. Once you meet the deductible, the plan covers 100%. Any questions? I mean, that's how simple it is to explain this plan. So like I said, so this is what we're looking at here is the 25, the 5, or the 10. $1 million, that covers the whole 3 years, the 1 year, however you do it. But again, office visits, including preventive visits, they go towards the deductible and max out of pocket, but they are subject to the network discount. Pharmacy is not covered on this. This is why there's a big difference between Allstate and United Healthcare, because Golden Rule, actually, your prescriptions can go towards your deductible. So when you see the difference between those two, that's why it is. But if we can add a card for like $10, because again, guys, if these people are on a brand name like Ozempic, they're not getting this plan. If they eventually have to get on a plan like that, we're probably moving them to an ACA at the end of the year. Okay. But that's the biggest thing about these things is basically prescriptions are not covered on this plan. Now, generic plans can be covered on the other ones, but neither plan is going to cover brand name drugs. So just kind of keep that in mind. So if I have someone on a brand name drug, I may put the family on this and I may put the other person on the ACA. We're going to have to learn to get creative like this. Okay. Outpatient services, that's all go toward deductible. Preventative screenings go towards that. But again,
Hey, Cap,
yep.
would you look this a little bit?
What?
Look at that disclaimer at the bottom of the page you just popped off of.
Yeah.
So it looks like there's this, and Ryan Pius noted this. You see, the second line there, it says for plans in Indiana, the coverage period maximums are as follows. Enhanced is 2 million up to 12 months with the renewal rider 4 million, 1324, 6 million, 25 to 36 months. And then it looks like, yeah, so there's some different, for those of you selling in Indiana, there are some different limits that seem
Mhm.
better than what's actually in the brochure.
Right.
Thanks, Ryan, for pointing that out.
Yep. Someone finally read the small print because I didn't. So that actually makes these plans even better.
Right.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right. Couple more things, then we'll look at some prices. But again, every plan covers inpatient hospital stays, emergency room. It applies towards deductible and co-insurance. A lot of people get this confused. This 250 is not a copay. This 250 is a penalty. In other words, you're going to pay if you go to the emergency room and you do not get admitted, you're going to have to pay this on top of. It's a deterrent. They want you to go to urgent care. But again, if you're bleeding profusely, go to the emergency room, okay? But again, this is to stop those people from, geez, it's 11 o'clock on a Friday, everything's closed. Instead of waiting until tomorrow, I'll just go to the ER. They're going to pay $250 on top of everything else. You got your diagnostic x-rays, labs. Again, urgent care is a $50 fee, deductible waived. And then you've got some child immunizations that are in there as well. So here's the deal. If you're going to sell this plan, the only thing I would look at is what's called the renewable option. See, the consecutive options, you're going to have different rates. But the renewable option and the consecutive option, here's the cool thing about this. If something is deemed as a pre-existing condition and they take you on the plan, so it's not a pre-ex that knocks you out of the plan. Again, a perfect example is you're on blood pressure medication. They're not going to cover anything tied to high blood pressure the first 12 months. But once you're on the plan for 12 months and the second year starts, everything's covered. So that's kind of a cool feature of doing consecutive plans, is that if I have something that's not covered the first 12 months, it will be covered on the second and the third. And then one of the things he also used is if you get, and he said, if you get cancer in the first term, when you go in the second term, cancer is covered. Okay, so you're basically getting a plan that will cover you for 3 years, and all you got to do is get through the first 12 months, and then everything that's medically necessary is covered the second and the third year. The deductible does reset with each policy term. Well, that's common with all insurance. So it's going to start. Coverage period maximum reset. So again, that's why I meant that $1 million is not $1 million per term. It's $1 million for the length of the time you're on the plan. It does have the guaranteed rate option available, which is huge because like Silas brought it up, a lot of people that did these consecutive plans may get hit with something where if I could just tell them this is what your insurance is going to cost for the next 3 years, a lot of people find that very attractive. And then the coverage can be up to 3 years. So I think that's everything else. Yeah. And again, the pre-existing in Indiana, it's a 12-year look back and they won't cover it for a year. So any questions on the plan before I kind of show you some quoting on this? You see anything in there, Silas?
I don't, other than Ryan's catch on the fine print. So
Okay.
Cav, what's the look back period?
12 months. If you've been treated for anything or should have been treated, even if they take you, they're not going to cover that for 12 months.
So even something, guys, like blood pressure, on blood pressure medication, I mean, everything's under control, you're fine. They'll accept you, but they're not going to cover the cost of your blood pressure medication, right, Cal? Is that, am I understanding that?
Now, the question also is, well, what if I have a heart attack? Well, they're going to go back, and if your blood pressure has been controlled, that didn't cause the heart attack. If they go back and see your blood pressure's been bouncing around like a lottery ball, they're not going to cover the heart attack. So as long as they come into this, but again, if they have uncontrolled blood pressure, that's a knockout question where they're not even going to get the coverage. So that's the thing, that if someone's on cholesterol and they're on blood pressure and a doctor can document that it's been controlled with medicine, and then they have a cardiovascular event, it's probably not tied into that. But then once you get past the first year, it's covered anyway. So that's very encouraging. And keep in mind, guys, we're only going to this plan is if they choose not to do an ACA because they don't have a special enrollment, or they choose not to pay for an unsubsidized plan. So again, if I give them the option of an ACA plan in this, and then something happens, look, I showed you an ACA plan. You didn't want it, remember? So it's their choice, but we're just giving them some options. So when you actually come in here, there's a lot of things in their quoting site. So you go to short-term medical. Again, here's where you can actually do the terms. The only thing I ever do is the rate lock, and it's either 2 or 3 years. And you guys want to talk about a great plan for someone who retires at 62 and they need to bridge the gap to Medicare. If they're healthy, this is the way to go, because you can lock in their rates and take them right up to Medicare. Okay. Now, they can take a 3-year lock, and if they get a job next year, they can get out of this anytime they want to. There's no long-term commitments, but you're basically locking in the rates for 3 years. And again, there's the difference in network. You can do Aetna or Cigna. Like I said, around here, I just do Cigna because it is a bigger network nationwide. You can hit this to check the providers. But here's the enhanced PPO. So again, like I said, the only things I look at are the 100% plans, and you can toggle them here. So a 2,500 is $1,000, a 5,639, and a 10,000 is 420. Okay. Now, when you look at the copay enhanced, as you can see, it's a lot. It's going to cost a lot more. Again, if I do like a 5,000 and a 6,000, I mean, I'm paying almost $250 more a month for a couple of copays. It doesn't make sense. Okay. But with that being said, the most popular is the 10,000. Okay, for 420. So now the next thing I want to show you, and we'll wrap this up, is here's some different plans. And so what I did is I have a 42-year-old male, 40-year-old female, 10-year-old kid. If they're non-subsidized right now, the cheapest plan in my area is CareSource, Bronze First, and it's $899. Okay. I can do the MedMutual 5,000, 100%, and the lowest level Health Protector Guard to kind of fill in the gaps, help with doctor visits. Like I said, that is going to be the most affordable. I mean, I can literally get down to $293 if I have to. If someone just needs something for the catastrophic, the MedMutual by itself is better than no insurance at all. So I can do the $293. I can throw on this. And again, for those of you in Michigan with the 6-month short term, this may be a viable option because this plan is permanent. You don't have to worry about playing the games. Okay. So it's $584, but I can do the Allstate $10,000 deductible for $420. And then I can throw on the MedMutual 0 deductible 10,000 for $184. And so now I basically have their deductible covered for the big stuff. And it's multiple years instead of, because again, the biggest problem with GRIC Critical Guard is I get one cancer payment. That's it. I get one heart attack. With the Med Mutual, this can actually cover them for all 3 years. So if I have cancer the first year and it rolls into the second year, I got 10,000 both years. Okay. So I'm looking at this option number 3 as a very, very, very stable option, as long as they understand the little stuff is probably not going to be covered. Okay. Again, but like I said, if I'm saving almost $300 a month, and here's how you got to start talking to people. If I'm saving you $300 a month, Silas, can you afford your doctor visit?
I can.
Can you afford your prescriptions?
Probably.
Yeah.
$30 a year in savings.
Yeah. Because again, why are we doing this? Because either they can't afford this or they can't get this because they're in an enrollment. They don't have a special enrollment. So if I can sit there and show them this plan right here, I've given them a really solid option and I'm still saving them $300 a month. So Sandra, what's your question?
Hey, Steve, why is the Med Mutual 10,000 less than the Med Mutual 5,000?
Because of how this is the $5,000 deductible. This is the 10,000 max out of pocket.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
I should put 0 deductible, 10,000 and 5,000 100% because I did all this with the custom feature. I just need to label. I'll label it better once I really start showing this to people. But guys, I like this because now all of a sudden for somebody who can only get an 899 or higher plan on the marketplace, we've got 293 up to 605. Or I can even lower this deductible to 5,000, which now I've got 5,000 to pay off my medical bills and I got 5,000 to live on. So we can start looking at this Med Mutual because the Med Mutual is a reimbursement plan. I can even throw on the 0 deductible 25,000 on here. And if I get cancer, there's just guys, we can get super creative with this and be cheaper than this. So what other question do you have, Sandra?
No, just a comment about the Allstate short-term medical, just so folks know that when somebody has that short-term medical plan, doesn't matter what category it is, they all has the life association membership. When that short-term medical ends, that life association fee continues. So it's important that your client is aware that if they don't want that, they need to actively cancel that as well.
Yeah, and usually they'll call you 6 months later. Why is there $15 still coming out? I thought I canceled
Exactly.
the plan. And I tell them, when you cancel the plan, you got to cancel both.
Right.
So Silas, what are your comments on all this?
Well, I think a few things that I would say. Number one, I love the fact that our portfolio allows us to have creative alternatives, especially in the possible chaos that we're about to enter into, right? I do think it's going to take a little bit more work, especially for new agents, to understand these products, and you need to start that now if you haven't already. I would also say that some of these opportunities that exist in the creative alternative side of things are actually going to pay you a ton more money than what you would make selling just an ACA plan. I don't think we ran the numbers on this stuff, but I could see many of these or these other 2 alternative options that Steve has put out here. I mean,
Well, I'll tell you this one right here for a tier agent, the advance is almost $1,000.
yeah, on
This
one
one it might be a
little bit lighter.
little, well, no, because I think commission wise, these are no, because the Allstate has a lower commission than the Health Protector Guard. You're going to get a lot more FYCRs with the Health Protector Guard, but again, from a cash standpoint, Silas is exactly right. We're going to make more money doing this than this. Now, if this is where they need to go, that's where you need to put them. I mean, this is still about doing what's right for the customer. But I think some of you have never experienced life before enhanced subsidies when we used to do this kind of stuff all the time. And there was a time not so long ago where we had a lot of reps who made 6 figures selling health insurance. And we used to have to tell them, why aren't you selling any subs? And they're like, I don't have to. I'm making a lot of money just doing health insurance. And we could get back to this, but the reason I like this Med Mutual is I think I can accomplish both because If I build this Med Mutual right, I can help with the two biggest things that health insurance isn't going to cover. It's not going to cover the MOOP, and it's not going to cover their monthly bills. And the nice thing about this Med Mutual is it pays based on expenses. So if I have this at the zero deductible 25,000 and I get a heart attack that's 70 grand, I'm going to owe 10, but Med Mutual is going to pay me 25,000. So I can turn around and pay off the 10 and I still got $15,000 to recover on. That's how you got to start talking to people like that.
So Lauren has a really good question. She says, what makes the short term better than the HPG? I would tell you a standalone HPG has no out-of-pocket maximum for the consumer, right? There's no point where the consumer's done paying and it's 100% coverage. Now, the HPG can work really, really well, but if you have a standalone HPG and your client has $1 million cancer bill, they're going to owe a ton of money. Where that
the easiest way to answer that is if I get cancer, my worst case scenario is 10 grand on an Allstate plan. I have no idea what it's going to be on an HPG.
Right.
So that's why I look at the HPG as a filler to the Med Mutual, because I know if I am on the Med Mutual 5,000, my worst case scenario for cancer is 5,000. But the HPG may give me a bunch of money to help pay that 5,000. But then since I'm pairing it with the Med Mutual, the advantage of the Health Protector Guard is that's going to help me with the routine stuff. So if I need to go to the doctor, wellness, get a prescription, that's where the Health Protector Guard is going to be the primary. But if it's a catastrophic, the Med Mutual is going to be the primary, and the Health Protector Guard is going to reimburse me based on my medical expenses. So that's why I think this is a phenomenal option. If that's all they can afford, it's a phenomenal option. But the short term with the Med Mutual is going to give you a better blanket of coverage where you know what your worst case scenario is going to be. As long as you know there's some certain things, and the big one, guys, is prescriptions. They need to understand if they get sick and all of a sudden they're put on some big prescriptions, it's not going to be covered. Now, don't get me wrong. If they get put on chemo pills, it's going to be covered. But again, if they're getting put on Trilogy, or all of a sudden they become diabetic on the plan and now they need, Ozempic or something, they're going to pay for that until they get to the open enrollment. But that's where we can turn around and move that person to the ACA.
And I think with any of these creative alternatives that we're talking about, guys, one thing you've got to think about, and you got to tell your clients this, is whatever you do, it's a maximum of a 12-month commitment, right? So even if you pick a Health Protector Guard by itself, which is probably the lowest level of coverage, is an HPG without a Med Mutual and without short term. If they only take that, the maximum commitment they're making to that is 12 months, because they can always pivot and go back into an ACA plan, even if they're sick, at the next open enrollment period. So we're building bridges for people, but we're doing it in a way, because of how the ACA is built, where it doesn't have to be a permanent bridge regardless of what happens for them, right? I mean, they can always at that next open enrollment period. So I think the main objective here is to, always think about, what am I doing to bridge you through to the next guaranteed issue situation, which is usually open enrollment, because that's kind of when we need to maybe look at things again or reevaluate.
And guys, one of the things I like to kind of stress to people to kind of break the ice, because there's going to be some hurt feelings and anger this year, and there's going to be some people that are pretty stressed out about stuff. I always break the ice by saying, look, I'm in the bad news business. I just got to find you the best bad news. Until we get to the Medicare, then it's the good news business again. But that's because, again, no matter which way they go, it's not going to be perfect. It's either going to be very expensive. Some doctors are not going to be covered. They're going to have a lot of out of pocket. But if we can learn about their situation and help them build a plan to cover this as best as we possibly can at the lowest possible premium. Yes, I said it. I'm going to try and build you a plan at the lowest possible premium. That's what turns this into an exceptional experience where they'll give you the good reviews on Google, they'll share you with their friends and family, and now all of a sudden you have people coming to you because you've taken this complex chaos and you've kind of made some sense out of it and shown us some things that most other agents aren't even going to talk about. And if they do talk about it, they're not going to explain it the right way. They're going to sell a health protector guard with a med mutual as a comprehensive major medical because they don't have the courage to say, look, this is what it will do, this is what it won't do. But man, is this better than you? If you can't afford that $900 ACA, this is a heck of a lot better than having nothing. Would you agree, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner? So again, I look at it as the best option for coverage is the ACA. The next best option for coverage is a short-term plan, especially in Indiana. Michigan's a little different, but a long-term, short-term plan. And then kind of the basic would be the Health Protected Guard Med Mutual, kind of explaining things and just hitting the pricing points that are going to give them something, because something is better than nothing.
Totally.
Insurance Fairy got shot a long time ago. There's no perfect plans anymore. There's flaws in everything.
I think what everybody needs to be doing right now, veterans included, is being a student of your business. If you're not reading the product brochure for the Health Protector Guard and the specified disease with MedMutual Protect and the accident plan with them and the Allstate product brochure, I mean, these are like that. Everything you need to know is in the product brochure, right? So download those, read them, dissect them, ask questions. I got to give kudos to Ryan Pius for reading the fine print on the brochure, because there are things embedded in those product brochures. You just need to know that. So go study it. Go be a student of your business. Start running some quotes, running some scenarios through, run your family through like CAB does, on what's it look like on ACA, what's it look like on Health Protector Guard with a Med Mutual Protect, and what does Allstate look like for our family? And then know what it'll do. And more importantly, you got to know what it won't do. So read those exclusions and limitations in the product brochures. Read the fine print at the bottom. Those things are important to know as a subject matter expert. So all right, I've got to wrap things up here because I've got another meeting I got to jump to. I got somebody waiting on me for an 11 o'clock call. I hope you guys have a great week. Please RSVP either way on whether or not you're coming on the 26th to Megan by the end of business today. If you've already done it, thank you. Otherwise, we'll plan to see everybody next Tuesday. Take care. Have a good week. Bye-bye.